Well, Congress moves into full NAFTA mode this week as the House Ag Committee opens a public hearing to prepare for renegotiations of the trade agreement that's extremely crucial to American agriculture. Our D.C. Bureau Chief Sarah Mock has more. Sarah?
Thanks, Janet. You're absolutely right. We're just about 3 weeks out from the official start of that first round of NAFTA renegotiations. And today, this morning, the House Ag Committee stepped in to that conversation with experts from across the country, including a familiar face. The former Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, was on the panel today, addressing, of course, U.S. dairy concerns this time around. Now, in conversations we had a chance to have with farmers this week, we heard a lot of nervousness about how these renegotiations may impact U.S. ag. One of the witnesses on today's panel really summed up that sentiment.
We haven't even got to the negotiation, and we've got a 7% decline in our sales since the beginning of the year. And we did, try and come up with some analysis to try and measure the potential impacts. I didn't cite them in my oral testimony, but we're talking about some real numbers here. Our total grain production could fall by 1.2 billion. We would have a loss of about $6 per acre. There would also be increased costs because the model imputed that there were probably $1.2 billion in farm program payments. So that's just a shot or a guesstimate of what the potential impacts could be.
So the big takeaway from those big commodity groups today was, of course, that negotiators should do no harm to current ag wins in NAFTA. But particularly for dairy and specialty crop growers, there's a sentiment that there should be some real robust reforms going forward. Dairy is hoping to formalize a fairer relationship with Canada, which has strong domestic supply management programs. Fruit and vegetable growers in the Southeast, on the other hand, are looking for enforcement changes, pointing to examples of Mexico selling tomatoes and oranges in the U.S. below market price. An expert from Florida described specialty crops as an industry under assault this morning.
When you release the capacity that's being built in Mexico in the last decade and dump it into the U.S. market at whatever price, as you well know, produce is sold on whatever the price is today is the price, because we can't store it. And if we all operate under the premise you either sell it or you smell it. And it basically depresses prices for many of these other commodities.
The representative out of the state of California this morning that represents the Central Valley really pushed back against that witness's testimony, saying that the current NAFTA outline really supports his farmers with their farms in Mexico and really benefits American consumers. That was a great example of the fact that even within industries, farmers across the U.S. can disagree. U.S. ag is so regional, that every crop in every region can have their own perspective on these really hot button issues. So we'll see how that plays out come mid-August. Janet?
Well, Sarah, we've also heard a lot, of course, about modernizing NAFTA in this conversation. Was there any discussion today about exactly what they mean when they say those words?
Yeah, absolutely. I think modernization is a really key point because this all goes back to the fact that NAFTA is a 23-year-old agreement. In 1993, when it was signed, things like biotechnology, things like sanitary and phytosanitary concerns, things like the internet they existed, but they definitely weren't a big concern. They definitely weren't written into the language of the law. And it's really kind of dated this agreement. So going forward, there's going to be a lot of focus on bringing those into the rules and making sure that this is a very modern agreement that's very beneficial on both sides. A lot of talk of win-win here during the hearing today.
All right. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for that update. We certainly appreciate you keeping an eye on things for us. Again, D.C. Bureau Chief Sarah Mock joining us from our Washington, D.C. News Bureau. Well, meteorologist Christina Loren joins us next. She's got the latest update to your weather forecast.